KT McFarland. The United States has tried everything to stop Putin's advance in Ukraine, but nothing seems to work. Joining me now to discuss is Aron, who has written extensively on Russia and particularly on Vladimir Putin. So, Leon, thanks for joining. What is going to stop Vladimir Putin? Nothing seems to.
He's there for a long haul, and so should we be. He is. What he's doing in Ukraine is an extension of the transformation of the regime inside. It's becoming increasingly aggressive, nationalistic, revisionist regime, and likely to be continuing to be more and more oppressive, because I think
Putin is on his way to be a president for life. When you have this type of a goal, and when your economy is crumbling, having a foreign danger, and of course, I haven't seen anything like this since reading history books on World War II. Motherland is in danger. This seems to be the theme of the propaganda. You have to rally the masses around the flag. You have to have a sense of foreign danger, and of course, the Russian television is telling the Russians 24 hours a day that it's the NATO that's attacking Russia in Ukraine under the guise of Ukrainian soldiers. So we have to look at this whole thing and realize that the only way to stop Putin, and it will not happen right away, is to gradually increase the domestic political costs of his adventure there in Ukraine. Either, or preferably both, by arming the Ukrainians to inflict greater damage on Russia. It's a very politically sensitive issue, Russian casualties. Their soldiers are buried in secret. And also make Putin face tough choices between paying the mercenaries, paying the soldiers, because so far it's not the regular army, it's the volunteers that are paid very fat salaries, sending tanks, sending missiles, sending Grad launchers, and paying pensions, and paying doctors and lawyers and teachers to keep up with the heating up inflation. Nobody knows when that limit comes, but that's the only way in the long run to change Putin's mind.
Okay, but some would argue with you and say, well, by continuing to put that pressure on, continuing to put economic pressure, potentially military pressure by arming the Ukrainians, that risks Putin becoming even more aggressive and doing something that would damage not just in Ukraine, but NATO, the entire region, that he would have to up the ante.
Well, Katie, haven't we learned the lessons of the 21st century, 20th century, with Hitler, Mussolini, Saddam Hussein? These types of people proceed according to their plan. They proceed according to, not to whether we make them less angry or more angry, whether we enrage them or not. They proceed from a very cold calculus of power. And no, I don't buy the argument that arming Ukrainians is going to make Putin to do something that he would not do otherwise. It's true that Putin, he's not a madman. He'd rather subdue Ukraine. And remember, Ukraine is a mortal threat to Russia because a democratic, prosperous, and European-bound Ukraine is an example. It's a neighbor next door. Very close people. They're cousins of Russians. They're no closer people who chose a different route and who are doing better than Russia, which is why Putin needs to humiliate, dismember, and eventually destroy and destabilize Ukraine. Now, how that plan is going to be changed if we arm Ukrainians? Yes, he would try to maybe overcome that with more Russian arms and greater Russian involvement, but that would incur greater risks of greater Russian casualties and much more treasure. Remember, Russian revenues are half of what they used to be because of the price of oil. To say that by arming Ukrainians we are going to force Putin to do something that he would not do otherwise, again, I mean, anything is possible, but the historical record of how these dictators behave is certainly not confirming this.
Well, it sounds like the situation in Ukraine is going to go from bad to much worse. Thank you so much for joining us, Aron. And for more on this subject and others, go to foxnews.com. Thanks for watching.